In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this. Pretty cool. And you can make this at home in your own kitchen. So stay tuned to find out how I did it. This is the equipment you'll need. Now don't worry if your equipment is not exactly the same as mine. I'm in a lab, so I'm taking the best equipment. You need 3 cups or 3 glasses that can easily hold 100 millilitres each. You need a measuring cylinder, mine's a 100 milliliter measuring cylinder, but a measuring cup that can measure the same volume would also work just fine. 3 pipettes, 3 stirring rods, a teaspoon, 3 different colours of food dye, blue, red and yellow, and good old-fashioned table salt sodium chloride. As you saw in the setup, I've already put my water into my beakers using my measuring cylinder. In the first beaker there's 100 millilitres of water, in the second beaker there's 100 millilitres of water, and in the third there's a little bit less. 90 millilitres of water. That's important, you'll see why later. Now the next step is to take my teaspoon and table salt. I'm not going to put any into the first beaker. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon into the middle beaker. And I'm going to put 2 in the third beaker that's got 90 millilitres of water in. And now the next job is you have to stir the salt into the water to make a solution until every grain of salt has dissolved. So what I've done here is change the density of my liquid. The first one, which just has water in it, then the second one has the exact same volume of water as the first one, except for now it's got sodium chloride dissolved into it to make a saltwater solution. The third one has got a little bit less water and a bit more salt. So this one is the saltiest of the 3 solutions because there's less water particles and there are more sodium chloride particles than there were in the middle beaker, the second one. So if we rank them then, this one, the saltiest one, is going to be the most dense liquid. The middle one is going to be the middle density, and the one that contains just water is going to be the least dense. So, to help you see what's going to happen next, you need to add a bit of food dye. I'm going to add blue to the least dense. That's 1 drop. Oh, perfect. Yep, 1 drop is perfect. You don't need any more than that. And of course, the food dye will change the density as well. So you really want to be consistent with the intensity of your colour, so it's more or less the same for each one. And there you go. Very dense, medium density, low density. Now let's add them all together and see what happens. Now for this part you need a very steady hand because you're not going to just mix them all together, because then the concentration of salt will mix and then it will all become the same, and then the food dye will mix and it will go a funny colour. So we're going to build the layers of the different densities of the salt water. The first one up is going to be the most dense, the red food dye. So what you have to do, the first one doesn't matter so much, you can just be very quick about this one. and take up a few pipettefuls of the saltiest, most dense water and fill it in the bottom. Now, I'm using a small measuring cylinder for this, but you can use those tubes that you can buy in the supermarket when you purchase a vanilla pod. Those sorts of glass, thin test tube looking things that the vanilla pods come in. And that will be perfectly fine for this experiment too. The key is you need a very thin, long tube. Doesn't have to have the measuring increments on, that doesn't matter at all. So yeah, the vanilla pod cases are normally the best. You just need to make sure you have a stable base for them. Okay, so the next part is the tricky part. Because now I need to build my layers. And for the next one, you need to fill your pipette and you need to hold it directly above the red dense layer and slowly dribble it down the side. And the slower, the better. If you rush this, it won't work so well. And it's just starting to form. Have to be very gentle. Now I'm getting my yellow band of my medium dense liquid, which has the yellow food dye in. And as you can hopefully see now, we have a solid red layer and I'm building in my yellow layer. Again, be very gentle. You don't want to mix the two different saltwater solutions. That is so cool. Brilliant. And then finally, now I'm getting a little bit nervous because this is going perfectly so far. Steady hand is the key. Take in your least dense solution and exactly the same. You have to hold the pipette, just hover it above the yellow solution, dribble, the liquid down the side of your tube, and you should start building a blue layer. Oops, I dropped that a little bit too much. Okay, but it's still working. Top it up a little bit more, gently. Oops, I had a bit of a wobble then. Okay, I'm really proud of that. That's worked out really, really well. So just to remind you, the most dense liquid sinks to the bottom. The medium dense liquid is in the middle and the least dense is floating on top. Remember, use a very steady hand for the building. And there you go. Cool, eh?